Today, our Denver Broncos are headed to Las Vegas, an interdivision matchup against the Raiders, a team who we already lost to earlier in the season, and we're hoping for a better result here to avoid the sweep. Along with this matchup against the Raiders, we've got a prospect profile today where we go over the running backs and wide receivers in this year's NFL draft class. And obviously, running backs and receivers are two of the more fun positions out there. So I'm excited to go over this crop. I think we've got a really fun and intriguing group of players today at both spots. And given where we are in terms of skill position players, I don't think it's impossible that we look to add a couple of these guys somewhat early in the draft. Last episode, we had a doubleheader, and believe it or not, we beat the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. Easily our best win of the year, our first win by multiple possessions. I feel like our coverage has been soft all year, yet Mahomes only threw 50% completion percentage in this game. Our coverage was great. The run game was phenomenal. Javonte Williams had his best day of the year. The Chiefs, meanwhile, ran for 10 yards. Nobody wants to run the ball against us. Against the Ravens, Derrick Henry had 3 yards. Against the Chiefs, Isaiah Pacheco had 8. Against the Falcons, Bijan Robinson had 23. Our run defense started the year off rough, but ever since then, it has been really good. But that's been one of the few positives in what otherwise has certainly not been a great season for the team. Again, with a record of 3-8. So before we dive into this matchup against the Raiders, I do want to take a look at our prospect profile. We've already gone over the quarterbacks, and now we're going to be talking about the running backs and receivers. Keep in mind, the order of these players is generally based on how they are doing inside of the Kansas Dynasty in EA College Football 25. I also do want to assess where our skill position players currently sit. I would say our skill position guys are definitely not the problem, but we lack star power here. And in the NFL, you need star power at running back and wide receiver. We've got some good players here, but we don't necessarily have high-end talent. Javonte Williams has been solid this year. He's had some good games. He's been able to stay healthy, which has been the biggest thing. And overall, he's played fairly well. He is on the last year of his deal, though. You're not supposed to pay running backs unless they are really, really good. Javonte hasn't been consistently great this year. Only 5 games this year with at least 4 yards a carry. And again, he's been healthy, but he's been banged up throughout the year. Jaleel McLaughlin's a really solid scat back, but I'm not sure he's anything more than that. We've been missing explosiveness and true dynamite out of the backfield at running back, and it's something we could look at this year, but given how many holes our roster has, it might also be irresponsible to draft a running back early. It's a really strong group, one of the best running back classes of the last 10 years, and that starts at the top with Ollie Gordon II out of Oklahoma State. He's a junior who is widely expected to declare for the draft at season's end. I think Gordon is the best running back prospect in this class, and he stacks up with guys like Saquon Barkley and Bijan Robinson as players who are talked about going in the top 10 at the position. Ideal size at 6'2", 215. He runs with power, he's explosive, and he is ultra efficient. Started the year a little bit slowly, but since then, he is averaging 8 yards per carry at Oklahoma State this year, and he's doing it obviously on high volume. There's nothing he can't do. He can stay in on third down. He can block. He can catch the ball. Short yardage, big runs. He does it all. But he might not be the only running back who goes in the first round, which speaks to how special this group is. Omarion Hampton, the junior out of North Carolina, is a guy who absolutely has a case to go in the first round. This is a big, physical, powerful runner at 6 foot, 220 pounds. This is somebody who runs angry. Every run pretty much is a solid run with a guy like Omarion Hampton, given his ability to break tackles, make the first guy miss, but he has home run ability as well. He's fast, he's athletic, he's dynamic, and he's really impressive at his size in terms of being able to get the big runs. Hampton has been the engine of the offense this year for the Tar Heels, and he's been productive as a receiver. One of the better pass-catching backs of this group as well. Along with those two, there's Devin Neal out of Kansas, and obviously we've been given a front row to see how good Devin Neal is within the Kansas Dynasty on EA College Football 25, and my goodness, is this kid special. He turns negative plays into touchdowns, always makes the first guy miss, an unbelievably nasty juke move. He is a big play waiting to happen, and when I watch him, there's 2 guys I see. I see Jahmyr Gibbs, and I see Alvin Kamara. Those are lofty comparisons, but I think Devin Neal is that type of player, and we have seen it the entire season. Through the Kansas Dynasty, he is explosive. He gets at least 2 or 3 big runs seemingly every week, And he's also the best receiving back in this entire draft class. He's been one of Kansas' top pass catchers, especially over these last few games. 593 yards leads all running backs in terms of receiving. Over 100% of his yards come after the catch. He is legitimately special and is right up there with Gordon and Hampton at the top of this class. I like the guys here on day 2 as well. That starts with Donovan Edwards out of Michigan, who leads the second-round group of running backs. And again, this is not based on real life, because if it was, Donovan Edwards would probably be projected to go in the second round of the CFL draft. But he is a beast here in this series. He's having a great senior season with Michigan. And this was a big season for Edwards. He needed to prove that he can be the 1A at running back, because he's always been a complement for Blake Corum, and he's done a really solid job of that. Some of the highest volume of any running back in the country. I still feel like he's at his best when he is with a duo, but he has done a really good job as the lead runner for Michigan. Another really, really good pass-catching back as well. And speaking of duos, Ohio State has 2 running backs projected to go in the top 100. We'll start with Quinshon Judkins, who really bursted onto the scene as a freshman at Ole Miss. A little bit quieter as a sophomore, transferred to Ohio State, where he has been really good. The volume isn't necessarily there this year. He's obviously been sharing a backfield with Trevion Henderson, but this is another guy who's ultra explosive. Maybe not the fastest, but somebody who generally makes the first guy miss. He's not entirely dissimilar to Devin Neal. I think his long end speed is a little bit slower, though, and there aren't as many home run plays because of it, but otherwise, he's really, really good. Rocket Sanders from South Carolina is next up. One of the biggest backs in this class, 6'3", 225 pounds. He is a bruiser. He is physical, and he is tough. Really good player at Arkansas throughout his career before transferring here to South Carolina. Definitely another power back, but similarly with Omarion Hampton, he has home run ability, which is what makes him special and likely to go in the top 100. The South Carolina offense has been inconsistent this year, but it's certainly not to the fault of Sanders, who again statistically has been a really good pass-catching back himself. That brings up Trevion Henderson, former 5-star recruit, was a superstar his freshman year at Ohio State. But injuries have been an issue throughout his collegiate career, and that was again the case this year. Fractured foot. He's missed the second half of the regular season, but he's expected to be healthy for postseason play, which is a big deal considering Ohio State is probably going to the playoff. Henderson is really efficient. He doesn't make mistakes. He's a smart, patient runner, but he's also one of the most dynamic and one of the quickest backs in this class. 94 speed, 95 acceleration. He's been really efficient this year when he's gotten an opportunity. And again, another great pass-catching back. That's a common theme with these guys at the top of the list. Kyle Monangai from Rutgers has really been the leader of this Scarlet Knight offense, and the number one reason why Rutgers is in consideration to make the playoff. Monangai has had a special season. 5'9", 210. I get that 5'9's a little bit small, but he's got good weight, good contact balance, another home run hitter, and he has been just so consistent, so steady, so reliable, and so good this year for Rutgers, and has turned himself into a top 100 pick. He's been the engine of the offense for the Scarlet Knights in the run game and in the passing game, and there's no reason to think he can't do that in the NFL. The other guy who I think could go into the top 100 is Phil Maffa out of Clemson. First of all, look at this ridiculous run. I get it's against an FCS school, but still, unfair. Maffa profiles as a traditional power back, 6'1", 230 pounds. He's one of the most efficient runners in this class. He's ultra consistent, and I think whoever gets him is going to get somebody who's going to be really good on early downs right away. I think compared to some of the other running backs we've gone over, he's not as dynamic, he's not as quick, he's not as fluid. You're not going to see as many big plays with him, but he's going to get you a consistent 5, 6, 7 yards every time he touches the ball, and because of that, I think the floor with a guy like Phil Maffa is really high. I think all these guys have a chance to go in the top 100. And then as we scrolled through day 3, there's a lot of good players here. Taj Brooks and Jarquez Hunter, tough physical power runners. Dean Connors, the pass-catching back from Rice. We saw him in the American Conference Championship game. Didn't look all that good, but he's had a phenomenal season. Jaquindon Jackson, the former high school quarterback, really great athlete. Montrell Johnson, Bashil Tootin have had great seasons. Penny Boone and R.J. Harvey, the duo at UCF. Jordan Waters had a great conference championship for NC State. And even the undrafted guys, some potential gems here with guys like Ayo Adeyi, Rashul Faison, Harrison Whaley, and others as we move over to wide receiver. It's a really good group as well. And as we look at our receiving room, it's definitely not a bad group, but again, we lack star power. And in today's modern NFL, you need 1 or 2 stars at receiver. Now, I will mention, we have had some guys playing really well. Marvin Mims is currently 10th in the NFL in receiving yards, and Courtland Sutton's not too far behind. Albeit, our passing offense has had more volume than any team in the NFL because we're playing from behind. We've had 3 overtime games, and unlike most other teams, we have not had a bye week yet. Josh Reynolds is also solid, and I still very much believe in the 4th-round rookie out of Oregon, Troy Franklin. So I do think it is still worth considering going for a receiver early because I think one of these top guys could really change the complexion of the offense. And right now, it seems like there's a really interesting debate for wide receiver 1 between Evan Stewart from Oregon and Teteroa McMillan from Arizona. They're right next to each other on the board. You really could go either way. It's sort of pick your poison, whatever flavor you prefer. But of the two, I think Evan Stewart's been a little bit better this year, which is why he is currently ranked slightly ahead. Stewart has been one of the 5 or 6 best players in college football, let alone receivers. Former 5-star at Texas A&M, transfers to Oregon this year, and he has been one of the best receivers in the country. He's built like Devontae Smith, I would say. 6 foot 175. I think he's a little bit more explosive and dynamic with the ball as opposed to Smith. I also don't think he's as good of a route runner or a separator as a guy like Devontae Smith, but I think he can win in similar ways. He, through the first half of the year, was the best player in the country and would have been my vote for the Heisman Trophy. He's cooled off a little bit since then, but he has still been good enough to be the current wide receiver 1, but not by much because Teteroa McMillan is right behind him. McMillan has a combination of size and speed that no other receiver in this class holds. 6'5", 210 pounds. This is somebody who's big, but he runs like he is 6'1". He is dynamic. He is explosive. But he also has great body control. For a guy of his size, it's really impressive to watch. Great separator. Doesn't drop the ball as well. I think he's been a little inconsistent on a week-to-week basis, but otherwise, he has had an unbelievable season for Arizona, and he is the type of receiving prospect and the receiving build that general managers salivate over. We have not seen many 6'5" guys with his body control enter the league over the last couple of years, and it would not shock me in the slightest if he is the top receiver off the board. Behind the two of them, I think there's one other surefire first-rounder right now, and that's Travis Hunter, the two-way player out of Colorado. Going into the year, everybody figured that Hunter would be a first-round pick at corner. But he has been so good this year at wide receiver, and I think it makes more sense for him to stick on the offensive side of the ball if he only plays one side. Receivers generally last a little bit longer in the NFL. They generally get paid a little bit more. And given how good Hunter is with the ball in his hands, you need to use him on offense, I feel like. He's one of the fastest receivers in this class. He's got great hands, great football instincts, and I think the fact that he plays corner actually goes to his advantage because he can kind of go into the heads of these corners, figure out what they're going to do, make a nice move, and get wide open. If he puts all his time into focusing on playing wide receiver as well, look out. Behind them, there are a few other fringe first-rounders. We'll start with Emeka Ibuka out of Ohio State. Could have possibly been a first-rounder last year, but he decided to return to school. Some unfinished business for the Buckeyes, and he's had a really strong season. 6'1", 205 pounds. He's a really, really well-rounded receiver. Good separator, runs good routes, doesn't drop the ball too often, and he's really athletic. This reminds me a lot of the decision by Chris Olave to return to school. He could have been a first-rounder in 2021, decided to stay, upped his stock. I think Ibuka's stock has more so stayed neutral, but with a good playoff, he could easily make himself a top 20 draft pick. Luther Burden III from Missouri is up next, and coming into the year, a lot of people had him as the top receiver in this class. He's been a little disappointing, though, but I still expect him to declare. I still think he's a lock to be a top 50 pick. He's a little bit small, 5'11", 208, but he plays bigger than that. I really wouldn't be worried about the fact that he is sub 6 foot. Ultra fast, ultra explosive. Now, his numbers are down this year. He hasn't been as good as he was as a sophomore, but he has still had a solid junior season, and I think much of it is teams doubling him, teams putting extra focus on him, along with the Missouri offense just being way worse as it was than a year ago without running back Cody Schrader, who's obviously now in the NFL. Trey Harris from Ole Miss is another guy who could go in the first round, 6'3", around 205 pounds. He's had a really solid year for what has been a really good Ole Miss offense, somebody with good size, good yak ability, and somebody who I don't think is going to take too long to become a solid starter on the perimeter. Ole Miss obviously has a loaded receiving core with Jordan Watkins, who we're going to talk about in a little bit, and then Juice Wells, the junior, who transferred from South Carolina. Really good hands, really good route runner, and he is fast for his size. Again, one of the bigger receivers in this class, but one of the fastest as well. I think he's got an outside shot to go in the first round, but certainly top 50. Josh Kelly from Texas Tech has really broken out onto the scene. Now, he is 24, along with Trayshawn Holden, the next player we're going to talk about, and I think that will turn some teams off. Josh Kelly is a year 6 breakout player. It took him 6 college football seasons to really break out, and that is a red flag. He's been in college football for a while, and he's never been a great player, but the skill set that he has shown this year suggests top 50 pick, and I think teams are going to be willing to look past his age and his slow development. Not every player develops at the same speed. He isn't necessarily the fastest at 6'1", 195, but he's a great route runner, great separator, and I think he has a really high floor given what he has shown this year at Texas Tech. Trayshawn Holden's in the same boat. Now, unlike Kelly, Holden has not really come out of nowhere. He's been in the public eye for a while. Top 100 recruit, started his career at Alabama, transferred to Oregon, and he's been a solid player throughout his collegiate career, but this year, he's taken it up a notch, and statistically, you could argue he's been the best receiver in college football. He has scored pretty much 40% of the time he's gotten the football, which is unbelievable. He's a solid athlete, solid hands. Even though he's not the fastest, he has shown an unbelievable ability after the catch. 53 receptions, 19 touchdowns, over half of his yards with the ball in his hands. He has looked like an NFL superstar out there, but again, he's going to be 24 years old. Took him a while to break out, but he has been so good this year, and it's been so hard to ignore. Let's look at some other possible top 100 picks. We'll start with the other Ole Miss receiver in this class, that being Jordan Watkins, who's had a really strong season. Statistically, he's actually been a little bit better than that of Trey Harris. Even though Harris is supposed to go a little bit higher than him, you can make the argument that Watkins has been better this season. Not the biggest guy, 5'11", 190. He plays generally in the slot for Ole Miss, and I think that's going to be where he generally lines up in the NFL. But I do think he has the athleticism and physicality to make it work on the outside as well. So I think wherever you play him, he's going to be a good player. After him, we've got Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. He's really the only guy who I would say compares to Tet McMillan in terms of size, athleticism, and body control. 6'4", around 210 pounds. Higgins has had a really strong season for the Cyclones, and right now projects as a early to mid third round selection. 6'4", 210 pounds. This is somebody who is a really strong route runner, really good separator, which you don't always see with somebody this big. He plays like he is 6'1" at times, and I mean that in a good way, in the sense that he's really fast, he's really shifty, and again, great separator. But he also knows how to use his size to his advantage, which is impressive. He plays like he's 6'1" on some plays, and other times he plays like he's 6'4". Elijah Badger has had a really good season this year for Florida. The Gators have a few really good receivers. They've got another one with Chimere Dike in this class. I think between Dike and Badger, I would say Badger is slightly the better NFL prospect, and I think he's been a little bit better, especially over the back half of the season this year for Florida. 6'2", 190, solid size. He's a little bit inconsistent as a route runner, but he's not bad in that regard. Good hands, good quickness. He really is a jack of all trades, I would say. He doesn't have any major strengths, but there also aren't any alarming weaknesses. I think he has a pretty high floor. I think he's going to be able to start as a rookie. I don't see high-end upside with him, but I think he's going to be a good player immediately for whoever drafts him. Jaleel Farouk out of Oklahoma is the other guy currently slated to go in the top 100 right now. I think he's an interesting player, 6'1", 205. This is somebody who can stretch the field, but he's also someone who Oklahoma looks too short a lot to make plays after the catch. I think Farouk's ability to do a little bit of everything is going to be a major asset for whoever drafts him. One of the best route runners really in this entire class. His ability to get open is second to none. He's had a really strong season this year with the Sooners, almost 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns, and a big reason why they are in consideration to make the playoff as well. As for some guys outside the top 100, I would look at Andreas Raymond from Eastern Washington. FCS getting some love. Raymond is a big guy, 6'3", around 215 pounds, height, weight, speed guy, really good body control, former high recruit at the FBS who had to transfer down and has turned into a really good player at Eastern Washington, the same school that, of course, Cooper Kupp went to. As for some day 3 guys, there are a few names I want to keep an eye on, the first of which being Tez Johnson out of Oregon, and this would be the ultimate storyline for the Broncos because he's brothers with Bo Nix. I know they look exactly alike, don't they? But for those of you who don't know this story, Tez Johnson was adopted by Bo Nix's family when they were in high school. They were high school teammates, they had a year together at Oregon, and Tez Johnson has easily played his best football with Bo Nix as his quarterback. Last year, he was exceptional. Decided to stay at school, which I think in hindsight you can make the argument was a mistake. He's become the clear third option in the Oregon passing game behind Evan Stewart and behind Trayshawn Holden. 5'10", 160. He's really small, but he is also really dynamic. I think he's going to be a pure slot guy. I think he has some similarities to Marvin Mims, which is why he might not be a great fit for us, but the storyline's there. It would be fun. We'll see if it happens. The last guy we're going to really highlight is Luke Grimm out of Kansas, another guy who we've gotten to see front and center. His development this year has been so much fun. When we started this series, I just kind of viewed him as a prototypical slot receiver. However, as the season went along, I used him as a deep threat a little bit more, and now I think he's one of the best deep threats in the country. He is more of a prototypical slot receiver, but he's fast, he's big, and he's able to stretch the field. This is not your prototypical white slot receiver. He can play the slot. He is a good short route runner. He doesn't drop the ball often, but he's also got an impressive ability as a vertical threat. As for some other names to watch, Chimere Dike from Florida, Jacoby George from Miami's had a big season, the Utah duo with Dorian Senior and Damian Alford, and then going down the board even further, Dominic Lovett from Georgia is a really good player. Torrey Horton from Colorado State could have been a top 100 pick if he declared last year. Hasn't been that good this year. Stock has gone quite a bit down. Troy O'Meary from Arizona State has really broken out onto the scene this year. Lawrence Arnold, another Kansas guy. If he plays like he did in the Big 12 championship game throughout the postseason, if Kansas makes the playoff, he's not going to go undrafted. He was awesome in the Big 12 game against Utah. And some other interesting names down the board here who could end up being pretty solid players. Really, really fun group of receivers, and I wouldn't be surprised if a few of these guys end up being stars very early on into their NFL careers. So with that, let's now shift our attention to this matchup here in Las Vegas against the Raiders, who currently sit at a record of 3-7. I would argue their record doesn't do them justice. They have been one of the worst teams in the NFL. They are dead last in scoring offense. They're bottom 5 in scoring defense. It's been a tough season for the Raiders, and even though we have a worse record than them, I would argue that we're probably a little bit better than these guys, but we did lose to them back in Week 5, one of the few good offensive performances from the Raiders this season. Of course, Gardner Minshew leads the way at quarterback. The Raiders had a lot of injuries in our first matchup. They're a little bit healthier. Alexander Mattison did not play in the first game. He will today. Devontae Adams, who's been out since Week 4, will finally make his return for Las Vegas. Of course, Brock Bowers is here. He had his best game of the year against us. Their defense is lackluster outside of Max Crosby, who is one of the best defensive players in the NFL. We're certainly going to be worried about him, especially considering both of our starting offensive tackles are out. We've gotten a lot of injuries over the last few weeks on the offensive and defensive line. Numerous defensive linemen are out. Zach Allen's been hurt seemingly all year. Malcolm Roach is now injured as well. And then again, the 2 offensive tackles hurt certainly will not make things easy for Bo Nix if he tries to get out of the pocket because, well, there's 2 backups there. Pitch on 2nd and 7 for Javonte Williams, and he loses 5. Already, it's Max Crosby in the backfield to bring him down. Even the backup right tackle, Nick Gargiulo, got banged up in practice. He won't play, so it's the 3rd stringer, Ola Udoh, who will be matched up with Crosby. That one is caught by Dulcich. He gets around 7. Won't be enough for the first down, though. He's wrapped up on the play by what looked like Nate Hobbs. And the Raiders get it for the opening possession of the day for them. It's Alexander Mattison. Gets by Jones, and it looks like he's gone. That might be the worst tackling pursuit by a safety I think I've ever seen. And I would like to point out that was EA's doing, not my own. By the time I was using Jones, Madison had already passed him. Was Brandon Jones wearing a blindfold there? I mean, seriously. An 84-yard run to be exact for Alexander Madison. We have not allowed 84 rushing yards in the last month, it feels like, and we just did to a 75 overall backup running back. Pass is batted away, incomplete on third down. Another 3 and out for the Denver offense. And the Raiders get it back. Rough start today here for the Broncos as Gardner Minshew looks downfield. He's got Devontae Adams. Nobody's in front of him. A 64-yard touchdown, and the Raiders add to their lead. There is a flag, and at first I thought it was a roughing the passer on Ronnie Hickman, but this is actually going to be called on the Raiders. A massive break for Denver, an illegal man downfield on Andre James, and the touchdown is off the board. Womp, womp. Still, we have now gotten beat for 2 60-plus yard touchdowns today, and we're gift-wrapped a penalty with one being called back. But we got to be better. Jacoby Myers up the middle to the 45, one of the more underrated receivers in the league. This team has a really good group of skill position players with him, Adams, and of course the rookie Brock Bowers. Halfway through the first quarter, Minshew connects with the tight end Bowers, who had his first and so far only 100-yard game of the season in these two teams' first matchup back in Week 5 in Denver. 2nd and 4, play action. Minshew looks to throw it, goes back to Bowers, and he is inside the 10 to the 6. The Broncos look horrible right now. I think they have 0 first downs on offense and are getting torn to shreds defensively. Nothing is going well here in the first 8 minutes of this game. 2nd and goal, White is going backwards. Finally, a good play for the Broncos. It's John Franklin Myers who brings him down, and it's now 3rd and goal. Minshew rolls to the right under pressure, and he throws it away. Nick Bonito leads the way with the pass rush, and the Raiders are going to be forced to kick a field goal. So the red zone defense is able to get the stand, and it's now 10-0. Still a lot of work to do, though, considering we look awful through the first 8 minutes. A complete far cry from the matchup 2 weeks ago against Kansas City. From the 29, here is Bo Nix under pressure. He will fire for Dulcich. And that is how Denver gets their first down of the day. It's a little unconventional, but we'll take it in what otherwise was a disaster of the first quarter. The Raiders lead 10-0, and we're hoping that this drive on offense we can get some momentum. Otherwise, this game could go even more downhill rather quickly. 3rd and 10 from the 50 early here in the second. Nix will look to throw it. It's a screen for Javonte Williams, and he is smothered. A loss of 2. Divine Diablo brings him down, and through 3 drives, the Broncos have 1 first down. That's not going to be enough. So the Raiders have it back from the 16-yard line. It's an RPO, and it's a loss of about 4. Riley Moss with a great play, soaring behind the line of scrimmage to make the tackle. 3rd and 13, the Raiders will go with a screen, and look at that blocking for Zamir White, who's able to get the first down. There's nothing we could have done there. That was just a perfectly executed play by the Raiders, who end up getting it to the 29. Following play, Minshew goes short. It is caught for a nice play after the catch, and a first down here for the 3rd-string tight end with Michael Mayer out of the lineup due to an injury. That's Harrison Bryant, the former Cleveland Brown, with the play for Las Vegas. From the 48 now, Zamir White with it to the right side with a 1st and more, and he is hit hard past the 40 by Brandon Jones. To think that we just played against 3 of the better rushing offenses in the league and completely shut them down, and now we are getting completely ran over by the Raiders. From the 36, Minshew is sacked. Finally, a big defensive play. It's Nick Bonito who brings him down, and that's going to be a big loss of around 6. 3rd and 12 now. Minshew's pass is batted down by Chris Abrams-Drain. The defense gets the stop, and that'll bring out the field goal unit. 56-yard try for Daniel Carlson. He's one of the best in the business, but this is still a very long kick. This one is up, and it is no good. I think it had the distance, but it was wide to the left. So it remains 10-0, and now this is Denver's opportunity with great field position to put themselves back into the game with 5 minutes left in the first half. Can the offense show any signs of life as it's Jaleel McLaughlin with room up the middle of 1st and more, and McLaughlin brings it to the 33-yard line. A big gain there of over 20 for McLaughlin, one of his biggest plays of the year. Following play, here is Nix. Clean pocket, now under pressure. Gets it to Cortland Sutton with blocks. To the 10, to the 5, he's in! Cortland Sutton with the touchdown, and the Broncos are on the board. Considering how poorly our team has looked today, the fact that we're only down by 3 is honestly a really good sign. Great play there after the catch by Sutton, and a quick possession results in a score, making it 10-7. Another big run, though, for Zamir White. Riley Moss with maybe a touchdown-saving tackle, but not before White gets it to the 45. 1st and 5. They'll go back to White. This time he is losing yards. Ioma Uwazurike brings him down, getting some extra playing time with all the injuries on the Denver defensive line. 2nd and 6 now. Back to Zamir White. This time with space to the right side. Breaks the tackle and is wrapped up out of bounds by Moss. Zamir White with over 50 yards. Madison, of course, with the 84-yard score. That's more rushing yards than we've literally allowed, at least in the last month. Now Adams is wide open. Minshew connects for the touchdown, and the Raiders are back up by 10. Patrick Surtain has had Devontae Adams' number ever since Adams was traded here to Las Vegas, but Surtain got cooked on that play, coming off his worst game of the year last week against Atlanta. Now he lets up another big play, and the Raiders are back ahead by 10. We'll see if Denver can do some damage here before the end of the first half, as this one is caught by Marvin Mims, who had a really nice kick return to start the possession. He gets around 15. Denver goes no huddle. They try to fool the Raiders with a run, and it works. McLaughlin gets 12, and he's out of bounds, stopping the clock. We've gotten a few really good runs here in this first half out of McLaughlin, as Denver still has all 3 timeouts with over a minute left. Nice quick throw for Sutton, who hangs on to the 21. And Denver would still go no huddle. Some trickery here, and the Raiders are not falling for it. Trayvon Merrick in the backfield with a sack, and the Broncos use their first timeout. 3rd and 8 now with 33 seconds to go in the second quarter. Nix under pressure, hit as he throws. It's Max Crosby in the backfield, sending pressure, and Denver's going to have to settle for a field goal. Not a horrible possession, considering it will be a one-score game. The 36-yarder from Will Lutz is good, and it is 17-10 going into half. I think the positives that we can take away is that the offense is looking a lot better. Started the game off really poorly, but over those last 2 drives, we look good. Defensively, it's been pretty bad. Hopefully it gets better in the second half, because that was hard to watch. Let's look at our halftime report around the rest of the NFL, and we'll start with the Chiefs and the Panthers. I don't even know why this game needed to be played. Poor Carolina. This is David and Goliath to a T. The only difference is that Goliath took care of business. 35-13, Kansas City with the win over the Panthers. 2 scores in this one for Mahomes. The Chiefs now 8-3. The Panthers fall to 3-8. How did we lose to Carolina again, yet beat the Chiefs? Football makes no sense. I love it. The Cardinals and the Seahawks have been 2 of the worst teams in the NFL, something that I don't think a lot of people saw coming going into the year, but it is Seattle with the edge in this one, 21-7, headlined by this touchdown by Jackson Smith and Jigba. Both of these 2 teams likely to pick towards the top of the draft. Not entirely sure if they would go quarterback, especially Arizona. Kyler Murray hasn't played horribly. He's having a good first half. The team around him is just completely selling the bag. And finally, we'll head to Green Bay. 2 NFC rivals, the 49ers and the Packers. Big game here for both teams. We've got a close one so far, tied at 7 with this touchdown from Brock Purdy to George Kittle. The Niners at 6-4, looking to come back in the NFC West, which is currently led by the Rams. As for Green Bay, they're 4-6. Their margin for error is slipping with how good Minnesota's been, and obviously Detroit there in the NFC North as well. So let's go into the third quarter. I think on offense, we just need to be a little bit more efficient in the short passing game. Bo Nix has looked good, looking beyond 10 yards, and the run game has been quite solid. But I just want to see more from the short pass. And then defensively, I think our pass defense hasn't been that bad. It's just that we're allowing the big plays. What we're also allowing is the Raiders to run down our throats. And part of the reason why our defense has been successful these last few weeks is because the run defense has been so good. We need to get back to that. 3rd and 4, Minshew looks to throw it to open the third. Under pressure, escapes the pocket and will get the first down, sliding at the 41. What a great play there by Gardner Minshew. Couldn't find anybody open, goes through his progression, steps up in the pocket, and is able to convert with his legs. 3rd and 9, Minshew looks to throw it. Under pressure, hit as he throws, incomplete. John Franklin Myers leads the way. And that'll lead to a punt. Only a one-score game as Denver gets it back. They can theoretically tie it here. 3rd and 8 from the 15. Nix under pressure. Hit as he throws incomplete. It's guess who? Max Crosby in the backfield, who ultimately makes the play. The Raiders would get it back. They're marching down the field slowly but surely. From the 27, Davante Adams catches this one for a gain of 20. The Raiders inside the 10, inside the red zone, with a great chance to make it a 2-score lead. 3rd and goal, nearly intercepted! That's a pick 6. If Riley Moss hangs on, this game would have been tied. A 10-point swing, assuming Daniel Carlson makes the kick. Missed one earlier from 56, but that one goes through the uprights, and it is a 2-score lead. 20-10 in favor of the Raiders. Big drive here for Denver. If they fall behind even more, with how little time we have left in this game, I wouldn't like their chances. Got to continue to get Jaleel McLaughlin involved because he's been awesome in this game. Runs for 20. Another big play for McLaughlin. He's having his best game of the year, and he's going to continue to get the ball because right now he is the hot hand. It's Javonte here who gets it on 1st down, and a big run for Javonte Williams from 143 to the other. It's a gain of 16. Quick start to the drive for the rushing attack. Final play of the quarter. This one is hung on by Josh Reynolds for the first, and that'll wrap things up. Here in the 3rd quarter, the Raiders lead by 10. 20-10 going into the 4th. We do with the ball. We are moving it pretty nicely, and we have to score here. We've got to make it a 1-possession ball game. The offense is having a nice drive, but it's been an up and down day on that side of the ball. Defensively, it really hasn't even been up and down. It's been mostly down, even though we only allowed 3 points in that last quarter. Up the middle on 1st down. Sutton, just shy of the end zone, would have been his 2nd touchdown of the game, but he does bring it to the 1 for a gain of around 19. Let's see if Denver can punch it in. 1st and goal. It's the big man, Audric Estime. Walks it in for the rushing score. And the Broncos are within 3. It looks like we've got ourselves a ball game. Big drive from the offense. And now we've got to see what the defense can do. Again, the Raiders only with 3 points in the 3rd quarter on their 2 possessions. Here's Zamir White with some blocks. Gets it to the 45. Wrapped up by Barton. Another impressive run for White. Here at the 45, they go back to Zamir White, and this time he's losing yardage. Riley Moss, I feel like, has played a great game. He's done excellent tackling. He's made some big plays in the run game, and I feel like he's been pretty solid in coverage. That one is incomplete on 3rd down. Benito with the pressure in the backfield, forcing Minshew to get rid of it. We're only down by 3 as we get this ball back. Bo Nix, by the way, with exactly 3,000 passing yards now on the season, as it's a 2nd and 6 from the 30. Back to McLaughlin, following his blockers, jukes away from the defender, and Jaleel McLaughlin gets it to the 46. The Raiders have no answer for him. He looks awesome in this game. Javonte Williams now to the right side on 2nd and 3. He jukes by a tackler for a 1st down, wrapped up by Crosby. The Broncos are running it down the Raiders' throats here in this 2nd half, and boy, it has been fun to watch. Under 4.5 to go. Short pass from McLaughlin. Breaks the tackle from Diablo and gets it all the way to the 17. Another huge gain for Jaleel McLaughlin. Denver now in the red zone with a chance to take the lead. From the 17, Bo Nix looks to throw it under pressure. He is sacked. Byron Young, the 2nd-year defensive tackle out of Tennessee with the sack. 3rd and 8. Biggest play of the game possibly. It's Reynolds who's just shy of the yards marker. We could go for a field goal and tie it up. I think if it was even 4th and 2, I'd probably kick. But when you're that close, you just got to punch the sucker in and go for it. No defensive players over the center. This should be about as easy of a QB sneak as you'll find. And sure enough, Bo Nix with the 1st down. I don't really know what the Raiders were doing there. What else were they really expecting? Max Crosby's pointing up to the board. Does he think Bo Nix didn't get it? Is he blind? 2nd and goal. McLaughlin in for a score. It's only fitting that it's Jaleel McLaughlin, the one to score the touchdown as the Broncos take the lead. We really struggled in this game early. We were down, I'm pretty sure, 13-0 at one point. But ever since like the 5-minute mark in the 2nd quarter, we have clearly been the better team. And now the Raiders need a game-winning drive or a game-winning play. Davante goes 70 to the crib for the lead. Again, Brandon Jones pursuit angles as he looks to tackle. What is he doing? He might need to go on the bench. This is twice today where his horrible tackling angle has led to a long score. And again, I was not usering him. Look at Brandon Jones. Why is he cutting so much towards the middle? He needs to recognize that Davante Adams is moving really quickly and go to the side. to bring him down. And the Raiders are right back up by 3. We're back to square one with just over a minute left and need a game-winning drive from Bo Nix as he connects on 1st and 20 to Marvin Mims, who's able to get the first down. 40 seconds now. Denver still with all 3 timeouts. Back to Mims, but he drops it. That was right in his hands. The pass was a little bit behind him. Not a great throw, but he still should have caught it. I think blame, though, definitely belongs to both the quarterback and the receiver there. 2nd and 10 from the 39. Nix looking to throw it up the middle, right back to Marvin Mims, and he puts Denver in field goal range as the Broncos use their first of 3 timeouts at the 33. So we've got to be smart about this. Obviously, we want the touchdown. We want to end the game in regulation, but we cannot make any big mistakes here. We recognize that a field goal is still fine. On 3rd down, that one is incomplete. Max Crosby with another pressure. I don't think he has a sack, but he's still had a really good game. And that'll bring out the field goal team. Will Lutz with a chance to tie it. If you remember in the first matchup against the Raiders, it was deja vu. Down by 3, Will Lutz has a chance to tie it after missing the game winner a week prior. He barely made it. This time, not a doubt. Right down the middle from 46. And this game is knotted up at 27. Certainly an interesting fourth quarter, an interesting last few minutes. The Broncos with 17 points in this fourth quarter, and we are headed back to overtime for the 4th time this season and the 2nd time between these two teams. I did a little Google search because I was curious. The most amount of times a team has gone into overtime one season, the answer is 5 by the Packers, and I'm pretty sure 1983. So we're getting close. Time for the coin toss, and since we're on the road, you guys should know what to expect here. Tails never fails. Lands on tails. We're going to start with the ball, and we're going to score. So the Broncos get to start on offense. Throughout our overtime games this year, usually the team who starts with the ball doesn't score immediately. We've had some really long overtime, so hopefully we can make this one quick. From the 27, Nix off his back foot under pressure, gets it to Reynolds with a nice move. And Josh Reynolds gets 17 before being hit hard out of bounds by Jack Jones. 2nd and 1 now from the 47. Nix looks to call an audible. Under center, looks to throw it. His pass is intercepted! Jack Jones, with nobody in front of him, will take it the distance. And the Raiders walk it off with a pick 6. It's Jack Jones who wins it for the Raiders, and Denver loses a heartbreaker here in Las Vegas. Our offense had been playing so well in that fourth quarter. We had Sutton go on an out route there. I thought Jack Jones was going to be in off coverage, and it looked like he kind of was. But I don't think Bo Nix put enough spin on that pass to where it's kind of teetering up there. Jones is able to get to it, makes the play on the ball, and wins it for Las Vegas. The Broncos drop to 3-9 with this defeat. It is official. We will not finish above 500 with our 3rd overtime loss of the season. A heartbreaker. This was like the opposite of bend, don't break. We really didn't bend. When we stretched the rubber band, it broke immediately. We allowed way too many big plays, and that was the difference on both sides of the ball. The Raiders with 2 super long touchdowns, nearly was 3, if not for one being called back, and then obviously the pick 6 there at the end of the game. I think in hindsight, we should not have had Courtland Sutton go out. There was a lot of space towards the middle of the field, and that really was not the play. I thought Bo Nix, other than the interception, was pretty solid. He was a little bit more efficient than Gardner Minshew, but Minshew was able to push the ball downfield a little bit more, making some big plays. The Raiders ran the ball really well. I don't know what happened, but we ran the ball well too. Jaleel McLaughlin looked like a star out there. Receiving-wise, Devontae Adams, Courtland Sutton, and Marvin Mims all played well, per usual. And then defensively, not great. The defense didn't lose us the game in overtime because, well, they never saw the field. But not a great performance on the defensive side of the ball, considering the Raiders have probably the worst offense in the NFL. They certainly did not look like anything near the worst offense in the league. So let's simulate the week, take a look at some results around the rest of the NFL here in week number 12. Some interesting scores here. As for the players of the week, the 1-10 Cardinals, who lost again with both of them in the NFC, Kyler Murray and Budda Baker. As for the AFC, Lamar Jackson, and of course, Jack Jones. That'll bring us to Week 13, Monday Night Football, the 3-9 Broncos and the 3-8 Cleveland Browns. Might be an ugly game of football, but I am looking forward to making fun of Deshaun Watson. The bye week also on the horizon before the finishing stretches of the regular season, and of course we're going to have a lot of prospect profiles coming up, going through the rest of the position groups before the season ends. Hope everyone enjoyed the episode, even though it was not the result we were hoping for. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.